Light barely penetrates foliage so dense that no more than a few scattered rays of sunlight reach the forest floor. A world of mystery, of furtive shadows, of stolen glances. The jungle seems enclosed in upon itself, keeping its myriad secrets tight within its heart. These are some of the oldest and most impenetrable jungles on the planet. Here, millions of creatures hidden away for millennia have never been seen by human eye. One of the largest assemblies of living beings that has ever lived on the face of the earth survives here. Isolated from changes driven by geological processes, glaciation, or man. The paleo jungles of Borneo and Sumatra are a treasure trove of life. The large islands of the South China Sea are home to some of the most enigmatic jungles of the planet. And Borneo in Southeast Asia is the third largest island in the world. It is located in the heart of Insulindia, better known as the Malay Archipelago. The jungles of Borneo are ancient forests that first blossomed into life around 15 million years ago. For millions of years, the flora here existed without the slightest contact with larger animals. These remote, inaccessible islands were, for a long time after they sprang into life, quiet, secluded jungles. Then, 2 million years ago, everything changed. Periods of intense glaciation caused a dramatic drop in sea level. And as a consequence, land bridges emerged between Borneo, Sumatra and Java, and Asia. It was as if, ironically, the floodgates had opened. An unstoppable and innumerable incursion of plants, mammals, birds and reptiles surged across the newly exposed landmasses to mingle with the peculiar flora that grew throughout these islands. Shortly after the last glaciation, the seas rose again and Borneo once more became an island. The biological richness it was now home to returned to its protective isolation. Flora and fauna thrived and further diversified, following its own rules, independent from conditions found on other continents. Life within this jungle takes place under the scrutiny of a curious observer, a character as particular as the jungle itself. The orangutan knows these jungles better than anyone. Orangutans are found only in Borneo and Sumatra. These anthropomorphous apes are closely related to humans, with whom they share 97% of their chromosomes. No wonder then that the inhabitants of these islands know the orangutan as man of the forest. Of all the animals around the planet that make their home in the treetops, the orangutan is the largest. Despite its great weight, which may easily exceed 100 kilos, it spends most of its life many meters up, hidden away, calmly observing the jungle around it. The jungle ecosystem that is the orangutan's only natural habitat is overwhelming in the number and diversity of living things found here. It is thought that at least 3,000 species of trees grow here and more than 15,000 species of flowering plants. And this abundance of higher plants allows the existence of countless animals. In fact, the orangutan shares its warm and humid home with monkeys like the maroon langur or leaf monkey and the pigtail macaque. These forests are complex ecosystems that permit each animal to specialize in exploiting the available resources. Although somewhat unusually, the macaques buck that trend, as they are able to exploit a more varied diet, as the occasion demands. But it is insects that really rule the roost. It is believed that about 1 million species, most of them still unknown, may live here. The insects are the true rulers of the forest. But that doesn't mean they don't have enemies. The flying lizard is an expert ant catcher. The female, a terrific hunter. The key is to find a good tree trunk and wait. If she has chosen her hunting spot well, a feast is guaranteed. The male is also hunting close by. He can be distinguished by his more intense green color and more particularly what he has under his collar. A striking flag-like flap of skin he uses to stake out territory and court females. Insects are a great source of protein, highly prized by gourmet animals, such as the Malayan sun bear, one of the rarest and most endangered, and also one of the smallest bears on the planet. It lives in the rainforests of Southeast Asia and on the islands of Borneo and Sumatra. Although the sun bear belongs to the order of carnivores, it is actually omnivorous, clearly preferring the great variety of vegetable dishes the jungle has on its menu. But like most bears, it also eats honey, small mammals and reptiles, and of course, crunchy insects. Now he's eagerly searching under the bark of a tree. Insects are everywhere and exploit all the resources offered by the forest. And of course, they themselves are a vital link in the food chain of this ancient ecosystem. The sheer biomass that insects produce and represent allows the jungles of Borneo to support one of the largest colonies of bats in the world. Every day at dusk, millions of bats emerge from the depths of the jungle. And every night, they devour several tons of insects as they appear from the jungle twilight. While the bats patrol the evening skies, an orangutan prepares his bed for the night, making a platform of branches and leaves. Orangutans prepare a new nest every night. Even so, they are complex and secure structures that protect them from mosquitoes and rain. But even at night, the jungle doesn't rest. It is merely time for a change of shift, and soon the night is filled with the whisperings and murmurs of life. Dawn, and the orangutans lazily emerge from their slumbers. They're in no hurry. They are, after all, living in paradise. This orangutan makes the most of the last tasty fruits on a curious tree. But all this richness and diversity of plants and animals does not mean that life is easy. There may be a huge diversity of life, but often food is scarce. And it is essentially for this reason that the orangutan is famously solitary. Despite the abundance of life here, the forest does not in fact produce enough food for large groups of orangutans to survive together. So they will usually fend for themselves in order to feed without competition. That is, unless they find a tree that has produced a plentiful harvest of fruit. When this happens, a few orangutans will meet and, for a while, foster close and beneficial social relationships, assuming there are no dominant males around. Females and the young will happily play and interact together. But eventually they will resume their solitary and nomadic life. These social events have much to do with the rain. The forests of these huge islands are drenched on an almost daily basis by tropical storms. The rain almost never alters the customs of the forest inhabitants. But some plants do react to the rain, such as the chaste mimosa, whose leaves will contract with the first drops to avoid the thunderous impact of the storms. Such huge quantities of rain give life to numerous streams that converge in very large rivers. Crocodiles, the most feared predator of this environment. Any animal that dares come near the river to drink, let alone try to cross it, may become the giant reptile's meal. In the darkest, murkiest waters of the jungle river, crocodiles are bound up in a constant duel. During the mating season, the battle for territory heightens, as each male claims his ground and makes it known to his neighbors. On this occasion, discretion is the better part of valor for the weaker pretender. The jungle of Borneo oozes moisture. And in this unique world, the buds of rafflesias, the largest flower in the world, grow. They're a meter in diameter and weigh up to 10 kilos. But only 30% of the buds come into flower. The rest simply rot away. Another somewhat more annoying product of the rain are the mosquitoes. No one is safe from their tiny, sharp jaws, not even these monitor lizards with their hard scales. In the end, everyone employs the same simple but effective defensive method. They flee. The giant trees need enormous quantities of water. Borneo is unique in being home to more than 30 species of squirrels. There are the giants, weighing more than 1.5 kilos, and there are the tiny and nervous that barely reach 10 grams. Nothing is wasted here. Scraps and scrapings of fruit attract hundreds of small fish who receive the food as, well, as manna literally from heaven. River turtles also snoop around in the hope of finding a snack. In the air above, several species of butterflies lick at salts that the storm water has deposited in the creek. The streams converge in giant rivers that run throughout the jungle. On the river's tranquil shores, a white heron patiently stalks its prey. Water is a constant in this ancient forest, and with water come the animals that live in it. Fish and amphibians abound, with over 400 species of fish and 100 species of amphibians recorded here. The patient heron seems to know he is living in an ecosystem of great exuberance. He only has to wait. Sooner or later, it's time to launch his powerful and precise harpoon, and he will capture one of the creatures with whom he shares this bountiful island. A deadly hunter, but a delicate eater, almost always satisfied with small mouthfuls. The reproductive cycles of these old forests are closely interconnected with the currents of distant seas. Sunbirds collect nectar and seeds with their sharp, curved beaks. And parrots look for fresh seeds. All depend on the tropical ocean current known as El Niño and its associated weather phenomena. Every 4 years, it causes a dry period when the blossoming of almost 90% of tree species becomes synchronized. And it would seem that the reproductive cycle of orangutans and other animals is linked to these prolific years. So females come into heat at these times, and a few months later, their young are born. This baby orangutan has not had a good night. But his mother is there to comfort him. Orangutan mothers are responsible for teaching their offspring all about this marvelous world. For 7 years, with apparently infinite patience, they will help their young learn all about the secrets of the jungle and how to move safely among the highest branches. Orangutans know their jungle habitat exhaustively. They know where to find the more than 300 different species of vegetables and fruit they feed on. They also know about thousands of plants with insecticide, laxative, and anti-inflammatory uses. The young also learn to distinguish between their neighbors, those who are edible and those you have to run away from. Among the latter, there is a curious cast of soft, slimy characters. Giant snails, sticky multicolored worms, and the unpleasant and universally feared leeches, which may stick to the skin at any time and steal a few precious drops of blood. Orangutans share the jungle with the strangest of invertebrates and the rest of their many neighbors, all linked by mysterious, invisible bonds. A lowly heap of orangutan droppings is a treasure, helping to disperse and germinate many of the seeds of trees so coveted by the wildlife of Borneo, such as these odd-looking hornbills with their massive beaks, which depend on these fruits to survive. The jungle of Borneo is one of the most primitive and least known woodland habitats on the planet. Until merely a few decades ago, thanks to its isolation and its age, one of the greatest treasures of biodiversity in the world was utterly pristine. And even today, despite the staggering pace at which it is being destroyed, it retains a wealth difficult to comprehend. In their ancestral forests, the newest additions to the families of intelligent, inquisitive orangutans, timid sun bears, and ostentatious hornbills still make their home. Dozens of unique species of birds, thousands of trees and flowers, and millions of tiny creatures take refuge, as yet undiscovered. Mysteries and surprises still lie hidden amid the mist and the moisture of these abundant, enigmatic jungles.